Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video. We are on the test server today. I am going to be looking at the new Fusion champions and kind of talking about them and are they worth going for. We are not going to be talking about Oella, the Fusion, the main Fusion champion, the legendary involved. That's going to be for a separate video, as I think she takes a little bit of separate looking at whether you're going to do her. The decision to get your the legendary from the Fusion versus the epic or the rare, a huge difference. Getting a rare is very easy. Doesn't take a lot to do that because there's going to be many options, considering there's only one rare available in this Fusion. Same thing with the epic. There's only one epic available, so getting 4 rares to fuse into that isn't going to be very difficult at all either. So I want to look at, what do we do as far as getting that rare, getting that epic? Are they worth getting for your account? And that is obviously going to depend on where your account is right now too. So we're going to take a moment. We're going to look at that and see how they fare. Now, before we get into looking at the champions, I do want to be very, very clear. I always recommend getting something out of the Fusion. It's a great way to get a champ that's new to the game. And at the very worst, they can usually be used. Almost every champion can be decent, at least for faction wars, if you're struggling there. And I think a couple of these champions will be helpful. In particular, Sylvan Watchers is a brand new faction. There should be a faction war opening up for that within the next probably 3 months, I would imagine, or maybe 6 months. But it won't be that long before it happens. Getting a couple rares so that you can have them prep for that wouldn't be bad. Not to mention getting some champions in your faction guardians for that new faction. That's not a bad way to go about things either. So I think in that sense, getting at least 1 or 2 of these rare champions would be my recommended way to go. And the same with the epic, at least 1, maybe 2. It does depend a little bit on your account and what you need. And the hard thing with these fusions is it takes a lot of resources. So you do need to kind of have a goal focus ahead of time while you go into it, just to make sure you don't waste any resources along the way. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one that comes out. And if you're doing multiple accounts like I am currently, you're going to want to use BlueStacks, which I have linked down below in the pinned comment and description of this video. It's an easy way to play multiple accounts on your computer at the same time. So I definitely recommend doing that. And of course, if you enjoyed today's music, I also have a Soundstripe link down below in the pinned comment and description of this video. And you can use code DeadwoodJedi and save yourself 15%. So let's go ahead and look at the rare champion, Shadowbow Tirlac. I do have him kitted out. I'm going to point this out really quickly before I get into it. I have all 5-star gear on him. He's a rare champion. If you're actually going to use him in content, I would imagine you're only going to have like 5-star gear on him. I don't even have the top pieces rolled past 12. I have the bottom pieces only rolled to 12 because they are 6-star. And I do have an accuracy banner here. But again, it's only accuracy, so you can pretty much, figure out exactly how much that would be if you only rolled it to 12, or if it was a 5-star piece, we'd be losing maybe 20, 30 accuracy. We're at 261, well above what we need for most content in this game. So this should be a pretty good idea of what this champion can do. And I think the best way to test him out would be at earlier levels of things. He's going to be very underwhelming at late levels. He's not that kind of a rare champion. He's not going to scale particularly well for you, and so we need to kind of keep that in mind. But let's take a moment and look at his skills here and get an idea of what he can do. We'll start with the A1, which is a single target decrease attack. The 50% chance to land. It is the small version of decrease attack. Not my favorite thing in the world, but if you need decrease attack, particularly for very early clan boss, he could be useful. I don't like the 50% chance with that. I don't like that it's the small version. Generally, I'm going to kind of forget about that skill, to be honest with you. The next part is that A2, which is an increased speed buff as an AoE. Now, here's a great thing about this skill, and this is his best skill that he has by far. 1, increased speed. Speed is king, always been king, will always be king, even if it's not currently meta in the arena. It's still really important to have speed on your champions, right? This skill not only puts increased speed on your allies, but it also does an AoE attack. That's a nice combination right there. It's a very good skill, and that's something worth keeping in mind. Plus, let's remember, this is a defensive-based champion, so all of his stats are all his damage stats are gonna be scaling off of defense, which means it's a lot easier to build him to survive rather than just, attacking. So, you build him to survive, you're also building him to deal damage. That's not a bad combo. His A3 ability is a Veil. He places that on all allies. Not perfect Veil. It's the baseline Veil, and it is only for 1 turn. He places a shield buff on himself as well, equal to 20% of his HP, so he gets a little bit of protection out of that. And then his passive ability, which is very interesting, decreases the damage received from skills by all allies under Veil or Perfect Veil buffs by 5%. So essentially, every ally that has a Veil or Perfect Veil on will reduce the damage he takes from skills, non-A1 skills, non-A1 abilities, I should say. So anytime an enemy uses an A2, A3, A4, it'll reduce that damage by 5% for every ally with a Veil or Perfect Veil. It's okay. The fact that he puts a Veil out helps with that skill, helps with that passive. There is a little synergy there, but the fact that the Veil is only for 1 turn, the fact that he's giving everybody increased speed anyway, which means they're going to run through their buffs even faster, makes that skill much less potent. If that was an AoE decrease speed skill that he was placing out there, this would be more impactful on us, I think. But as it is, it's still not bad. It is a way to reduce some of the damage this champion takes. Now, as far as how I have him kitted out, first off, 0 masteries on him. 0 masteries. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know, but I wanted to do that because I felt like that was still more early game. How does this champion play, right? 219 speed, 3,200 defense, 26,000 HP, 100% crit rate, 261 accuracy. He's decently built. He's got 100% crit rate, so we can kind of see his damage. Got good defense. That's not hard to build. His HP is definitely low, and that's just part of being a rare champion. His base stats aren't bad, though. 15k HP, 1,200 defense. Those are not bad base stats for a rare champion. Even 95 speed isn't terrible. So it would be possible to build his HP up higher than this. I don't have the gear on. There's also other couple things that we probably need to keep in mind. I don't have any faction guardians set up. That's going to make a big difference, right? I don't have any mastery set up. That'll make somewhat of a difference. Probably not anything really with this. I would probably take this person down the defensive tree and the offensive tree if I were to choose. And so in that case, I don't think he would add anything to his HP, but his defense certainly would bump up. Also, he's got 5-star gear on, right? It's not great gear. So better gear is definitely going to give him a lot more stats. And that's definitely something we could do. As it is, though, 220 speed, I think, is pretty decent with 100% crit rate. So I'm not too upset with his build right now. I do wish I could take him into my free-to-play. I feel like I give you guys a better view of how he is for early game if I could put him with other champs that are in a free-to-play type of build. The problem is I don't have the kind of gear to build all my champions that way, so I just kind of have him. And I think really the best way to showcase what he can do offensively is take him here into campaign. Have him run 12-3 brutal because, yes, he can solo it even without masteries. It was just kind of nice. You can see that AoE ability is pretty strong. That shield is going to be decent in these early levels as far as protecting him goes. And then his single target is A1 is not bad damage-wise, but that AoE comes back. It's a 3-turn ability, and it is very strong, and it is his prioritized skill with the increased speed buff, right? You can see that's not a bad damage-dealing ability. Now, obviously, those bombs, if they landed, would be a problem, and that is definitely something we have to kind of factor in. I do have a full Great Hall, or almost full, so that definitely is helping, but I mean, pretty solid, right? He can get through that in 30 seconds is not a bad farm early on here, I would have to say. Now, the thing is, if we take him anywhere else, it's not going to be nearly as effective, right? So if I want to take him somewhere into, say, let's take him into Dragon. Let's go early because he's just by himself. I'm not going to put anybody with him just so we can get an idea of what he does. We can take him like Dragon 10. And in fact, you know what? I was doing some testing earlier. Don't mind me. Let's go ahead. Let's take him in here. You know what? Let's take a little bit higher. We'll go to Dragon 15. I think that's a pretty decent spot, right? We can go into Dragon 15. The decent difficulty, it is a farmable spot that we try to get to pretty early in the game, right? 15, 16 or so. That's the point where you stop getting the mystery shards, you start getting the ancient shards. So it's a nice break point as far as farming goes. And if I can find this champion, it'd be great at any point here. I have too many champions on my account. Where is he? He's got to be in here somewhere, right? Do have him. He's new. There we go. Beautiful. All right, so let's get him and let's bring in War Maiden here and let's see where her stats are at. 235 speed. Perfect. So she's going to go first and she'll give us that decreased defense. And then we'll be able to see kind of what damage he does, which I think will be interesting, right? And a little bit important to kind of get a feel for. So I think that should be a pretty decent thing. And you know what we'll do? We'll bring in Michaelis as well, just to give us a little protection and help us survive. Maybe a Lamidbur. We're just going to go all rares here. We're just going to go all rares. Some of these are pretty OP builds, but we're just going to go all rares, and we'll see what we can't do. And I think that'll be good. We'll add Myrmidian, another ally protection champion. Why not? All right, let's go in here. We'll see what we can't do. And I don't even know if the other ones are geared. I think they are. It may be very well, though. But there's that decreased defense. He puts up the shield in the Veil. With all those allies, he's actually, looks like he's prioritizing that Veil ability, which is pretty interesting, I think. There we go. So we get, you know, decent damage. Nothing game-breaking by any means, but pretty solid all in all. And you can see with the team, we're getting through this pretty decently here, right? And this is not bad progression for, you know, fighting with the team. His single target, especially with that decreased defense out there, is fairly strong. I think it might even be stronger if we had increased defense, right? All of a sudden now his damage skills become a little bit more viable there. I do like that little Veil ability that he has, and it does bring in some options of using some different sets. I know we get a retaliation set early on in this game, and that might be a viable strategy with him because of the Veil and the fact that he's going to take reduced damage anyway. Then he'll have a chance to at least counterattack. But there goes wave 1. Let's take it off auto here. We'll see if I can't do a little manualing to set this up a bit more. I do kind of want to see his A2 with that out there. You don't have it available, so that's not an option. Okay, A1. You can see decent damage there. That is not bad numbers at all, I would say. Yeah, we can. Why not? Double ally protection, always a great way to go. Sure thing. You can put her down and get some healing going. Oh, the wrong kind of healing. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, here we go. A2, increased speed, AoE attack. Boom. 15, 16, 12,000. Pretty decent damage across the board, but nothing I would be writing home about early on in this game. The big thing, though, and this is the reason why you might want to consider using him, is just like, you know, Apothecary is such a game-changing champion because we get so much more speed out of her. This guy is also going to be able to give us speed, but on top of that can bring us some damage as well. So is he going to be amazing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't see him using him in any endgame teams. Maybe for some of the secret rooms in the Doom Tower, might be possible. The big thing I think with him, though, which is going to be really nice, is for faction wars. Speed is king. It's always been king, will always be king. And being able to have some nice damage dealing abilities on top of that can be really useful. The decreased attack, even if it is the little one, will help you with the bosses, especially when you face them. The Veil can help protect your champions when they start getting low, and that can be a really good way to like kind of mitigate some of the damage and allow some of your other champions to kind of pick up the slack. And, you know, I think in that respect, there's actually a fair amount to like about this champion. I mean, I know this is stage 15. We're not at the high ends here. It's not the crazy levels of the game, but if he can get through stage 15, right, that's a pretty good place to begin. We don't have a lot of damage coming out of these champions outside of him and maybe War Maiden, right? Not like exemplary damage dealers in this team, but we are taking down this boss pretty decently, taking down the waves pretty decently. And I would imagine this is going to be like a 4-minute run, maybe 4.5 minute. Hopefully we'll survive it, right? We have a lot of sustain in here, but I think this is the point, is that he's going to be useful in the very early games. He's not going to scale super well. If that increased speed was a 30%, now we're talking. Now we actually might be able to bring him even into like a clan boss team or something like that. That would be pretty crazy, but it's not. Because it's not, there's a very limited role to his skills and what he can do for us. If that decreased attack was a big version, again, we might be able to bring him into some real cool end game kind of stuff, but it's not. And so his limited ability is definitely going to end around the mid game period. This level of dragon is probably about as high as you're going to want to take him in any dungeon that you bring him into. After that, there's just going to be better options and you're going to want to move on to him. So that's kind of my feeling on this guy. Definitely worth getting, I think. Good for the faction war. Really good for the early game. Gonna be terrible for the late game. So probably not worth getting for that whatsoever. I think that's a pretty good assessment. Let's see if we can actually win this fight. All right, look at that. We actually won the fight 5.5 minutes, so, you know, super fast. But we did actually win the fight. He did more damage than everybody else, 368,000. Pretty decent, I would say. And that's kind of the advantage of having a defense-based champion. I can build him for defense, and he can still do damage, so he can survive and hit hard at the same time. That's great. But I think that kind of covers where Tierlack is at for us. Great for the early game, probably below average for the mid game, and completely useless after that. All right, the other champion I want to look at is Maruka. Now, Maruka is an orc champion, and, well, let me be upfront. I don't like this champion. I think she's got a bad kit. I think she's badly AI'd. I think she makes very little sense for anybody to really have on their account. However, will be really useful, and this is true, really useful for faction war. And it's because she's in the orc faction. So is it worth getting? I think for a lot of people, might be worth a copy. I don't know about a lot of copies, but I think at least a copy. And let's look at why. First off, the skills, right? So, God, this kit is really bad, though. We'll start with the A1. Double hit, decreased speed chance, 30%. It's a big one. It's good. Each hit has a percentage chance, 15% chance, 30% chance when booked. That's decent. It's not great. It's decent, right? I'll take that. On an A1 skill, big decreased speed, that's pretty solid. A2 ability removes all debuffs from a target ally and then heals them by 50% of their max HP. Now, again, it's their max HP, which is less good. But a 50% heal is pretty significant. That's nothing to scoff at. That's a pretty solid ability, right? We have this on a fair amount of champions. Single target, cleanse, and heal. Then the A3, revive on death on all allies for 2 turns. Now, this is a little bit lackluster. It's a lot lackluster because it's just revive on death. Revive on death is kind of a terrible ability. Outside of the Sand Devil Necropolis, I don't know anybody that really even uses it, right? Because it's hard to speed tune around. It's unreliable. And if you don't have it up at the right time, you die. Simple as that. You can't extend this buff, right? And so it's very, I don't know. It's not my favorite ability at all. I think it's pretty bad when it comes right down to it. And the fact that it doesn't come with anything else. There's no increased defense. There's no increased speed. There's no turn meter boost. There's no continuous heal. There's literally nothing with it. I don't see the advantage of having the skill on her kit. In a lot of cases, I'd straight up want to turn it off. I don't think it's as valuable as having a single target cleanse and heal and a decreased speed on the A1. Her kit is so bad, you might just want to use the A1 most of the time. So keep all that in mind. Her passive ability is pretty solid, though. Every time the champion's hit, increases their defense by 2.5%. So if she gets hit 20 times, it'll stack up to 20%. Is that right? No, that's not right. 2, 5, 4, 8, 12. 12 times. Gets hit 12 times. I figured it out. If she gets hit 12 times, it will stack up to 20%. And this does reset each round. So this is really only going to be useful in extended fights against bosses, essentially. Really the only way you're going to ever see this come into play. But that's not a bad passive ability at all, and it doesn't really impact the rest of her kit. The problem is, of course, she's a single target heal and cleanse, and she has decreased speed on the A1. That's it. There's not a lot going on here. The revive on death, I mean, very situational in my opinion. So I don't love her. Where she can be useful, though, and I think this is the part we do need to look at, is in faction wars. And if you try to run her in faction wars, I think that can be pretty helpful. Now, problem with single target heal is it's single target heal. It's not AoE heal, which is frustrating to say the least. I do want to put together a team here so you can kind of get an idea of how this would work. She's just not great for this, to be honest with you guys. Maybe we can bring in him. I don't think he's very good though, or very well built, I should say. I can bring in Duck. Duck is probably decently built right now. The thing with this team, hopefully we can, Seer can help us kind of nuke through a couple of the waves. And then once we get to the boss, we'll be able to see what she can't do. Hopefully, that's the idea. So let's jump in and kind of see what happens here. Now, there's a couple things. I've run this before. We can survive with it. I had Vrask in there for extra healing. So it kind of nerfed her purpose. I don't even know if we're going to survive this. But there's a couple things about our kit. One, this A3 ability, I've not seen her use this skill on auto. So if you don't preset the skill, I don't think she's going to use it. The single target heal, she will definitely do. And in fact, The way I have her built now, I have her basically like 2 Morge kit. I have her built really, really well. I was trying her to kind of see if she can solo stuff. She just doesn't do enough damage to be able to do that. But definitely she can keep herself alive against waves for days. I took her into Dragon 20. She stayed alive through the waves on Dragon 20. It just took us like 50 minutes to beat each wave, right? But this is a really strong ability as she uses it, as is the decreased speed on the A1. So she's built to kind of do the work that we want her to do. That's not something I'm going to be worried about here. But let's just kind of watch as she go through. Remember, she's not going to use that A3 on auto. So you'll be able to see that here in this first wave. I do like the animations. I love that actually. The jumping, attack, boom. So there is stuff going on. She does, 100% crit rate, I think, or close to it. So she should be hitting decently. She's just not a really strong hitter. But you can see with Seer, we got through that first wave, no problem. And then we kind of just keep going here. Just sort of the goal, right? Just kind of progress a little bit as we go through here. Now, I do want to interrupt because I think the enemy might be taking some turns in a moment and can hit decently hard. I'm just going to put the Revive on Death on ourselves. As you saw, won't do it on auto. So I'm not expecting her to do it on auto. That's just not something that's going to happen. So I just want to make sure that nobody dies here. There you go. That's why we did that. That's going to still happen. This is why I don't get Revive on Death. It's such a useless skill in my opinion. It's so useless. Like why is it all by itself? This is literally one of the worst epics I think I've ever seen in this game. Like almost as bad as, oh gosh, what's that guy's name? Mardolf or something? The one that can't crit hit. I think he might be in this faction actually. He's either in this or Ogren. I think he is in this one. Awful. But look at that. They exchanged our HP. She immediately healed Zargala, which is going to be massive for us for surviving here. And that is kind of the advantage that she's going to be able to bring for this faction. There's very little healing in the Orc faction. There's very little revive in the Orc faction. So having somebody that can do that, I think would be massive. Now, I have her in a regen set. I am a little bit cheating as far as like, what's doable. The regen kind of means that she won't die, so she can actually heal everybody else. But it does give you that idea of like why you might want to get her and why she might be valuable for your team, because she can at least heal one of your champions up to full. And that's, or maybe not full, but 50% heal, right? I don't know how else to put it. So that's kind of cool, right? And that's sort of what I have her in right now. I guess I'll show you guys the build afterwards. I kind of meant to do so before, but that's okay. That's okay. We're getting there. You can see how this is working. She does put that now she puts the Revive on Death on. I don't understand where her AI is at on this, honestly. Maybe there has to be some kind of debuff thing, but that's the first time I've seen her do it on auto. So there's definitely some kind of AI trigger for her to be able to use that skill. What it is though, I have absolutely no idea, because she doesn't do it very often, at least on auto in my experience watching her. They already did the health swap, so now it's just about, can we beat the enemy down in time? And look, her heal is significant, right? It's significant and it's consistent, only being on a 3-turn cooldown. We're getting it out there a fair amount of the time. Again, you can see we got the Revive on Death just in case. A lot of our champions have decreased defense. There went Zargala, and now she's back. So you can see, I think she's actually going to be really helpful for a lot of people in Faction War, specifically, if nowhere else in this game. And the fact that she's a part of the fusion means she's going to be easily attainable. And that's going to be a really big help for a lot of people, I think. And I think that reason alone probably makes her worth getting for your account. So there we go. Orc, stage 21, pretty much on auto. The only time I manualed it didn't matter. So I could say, I think she's a pretty solid champion, right? That's not true. She's a terrible champion, but she's pretty solid for Orc Faction War. And if you're going to get her, you're literally going to get her just for that. Just so you guys have an idea of how I did build her. It's a gross build, so obviously, you need to take some of this with a grain of salt, but I put really good gear on her. You can see 56k HP, 3k defense, 256 speed. Again, very, very fast for those heals. But you can see how effective she was. Good resistance, good accuracy, masteries. Yeah. It's a decent champion. Nothing worth going crazy over. So anyway, those are the 2 champions. Those are the champions I wanted to show you guys and highlight. Do you had an idea of what they would be capable of? whether you want to actually spend some time getting them instead of the main fusion champion. I do think Oella, the main fusion, has some real appeal. I think there is definitely a reason, like there's definitely some viability in getting her. I don't think it's necessarily a waste to go after her, but she is not that kind of S tier champion that one of these traditional fusions is typically worth pursuing for, right? So I mean, if I didn't have the resources to do it easily on my main account, I would absolutely skip it. On my free to play, I'm absolutely skipping. Even if I had saved resources, I would probably skip it. I do think she's going to have some potential, but I really think it's only for end game teams. I think her real potential is going to be in things like Sand Devil, High Level Arena, and Hydra. And so, you know, there's a real limited viability with that. There is some real Hydra potential with her because of the increased resistance buff she brings, but nothing crazy. I'll talk about her in a separate video anyway, but I just want to bring this as an alternative since I don't think I can really recommend this fusion on its own, and I think a lot of you are going to be skipping it anyway. Getting some of these champions, now you know, do I need them? Do I not? If you're already beating Faction Wars and Orcs, you don't need that epic, and the rare is probably going to be decent for everybody to get just to prep for the Sylvan Watchers whenever that releases. So anyway, that's the video. If you liked it, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Until next we meet, I'm exhausted. And I'm the Deadwood Jedi.